It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey ladies, welcome back to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, queen bee of this hive, as well as your resident feminist life coach and psychotherapist. And today we are diving headfirst into a topic that is impossible to ignore nowadays: the divided states of America. Yep, you heard that right. I'm going there. Because let's be honest. Right now, it feels like we are living in 2, maybe 3 different Americas. And I just want to say this episode is about more than politics. It is about humanity, about how we got here, why we're so divided, and how, despite all of the noise, we can each do our part to heal, stay grounded, and to rise above the chaos. So let's start with the obvious and talk about this fracture that we feel. Because America is split down the middle and then some. Politics have become tribal. Social media has turned into a battleground. And even families are fractured by ideology. Think about it. Thanksgiving dinners that end in shouting matches. Friendships lost over political posts. Entire communities avoiding conversations altogether because it's just too much. In 2024, Pew Research found that nearly 70% of Americans said that they feel exhausted when talking about politics. 70% of Americans are sick of this crap. And here's the kicker. Both Democrats and Republicans describe members of the other party as immoral. Not wrong, not misguided, but immoral. That is deep. That is the kind of language that makes reconciliation feel impossible. And while this division isn't brand new, it is definitely intensified. Remember the 2020 election? The pandemic? George Floyd's murder and the nationwide protests? Roe versus Wade being overturned? Each one of these moments widened the cracks already running through our country. And then came 2024. The election that reignited every single flame. Women's rights, healthcare, racial justice, climate change, and basic truths about democracy, all on the line again. And to be honest, for many women that I've worked with, it just felt like deja vu and heartbreak all rolled into one. Now, let's talk about something that has been feeding this division. Cancel culture. Cancel culture was originally meant to hold people accountable, especially those with power and privilege who never seemed to face the consequences. But then, somewhere along the way, it mutated, as it usually does, right? It became weaponized, and now it's often used as a political sword, slicing through dialogue and silencing nuance. You cannot even post an opinion online without bracing for backlash. I mean, hell, you can't even post that the sky is blue because someone will debate you on it. People are afraid to say the wrong thing, not because they don't care, but because they are sick and tired and they are terrified of being canceled, misunderstood, or labeled. I, for one, am one of these people that is absolutely sick and freaking tired of every single word that comes out of my mouth being challenged by people. I'm sick of it because I'm not out there saying a bunch of ridiculous crap. I'm literally talking about, I think I had said something about a movie one time. Like something along the lines of, oh yeah, I went to see this movie and, I was so great to have a date night with my husband or whatever. And then somebody slides into the comments and they're like, oh, that movie was ridiculous and blah, blah, blah. It really represented this, blah, blah, blah. And it was not a controversial movie. Not at all. There were no controversial topics. And it was kind of like one of those psychological thrillers. And it was just so ridiculous because the person speaking to this and how they were speaking about it, they were not somebody in my profession. And yet they were speaking as if they had knowledge about it. And it wasn't even that kind of movie. So, like, literally, I can't even be excited to go have a date with my husband without someone being a jackass in the comments, right? So now let's look at a few real examples outside of my life where they include like instances where both sides have used cancel culture tactics. So some of the notable ones, the Target boycott. So when Target released Pride merchandise back in 2023, the right-wing groups threatened employees and vandalized stores, leading the company to actually pull some products. So the right got pissed, Target complied, and then the left accused them of caving, while the right was accusing them of indoctrination, and nobody won. Like, nobody won. It just blows my mind. What is the purpose of all this nonsense, right? And then we've got the Bud Light backlash, right? So when Bud Light partnered with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, it became a lightning rod for political outrage. Like, I wasn't even aware of it for a long time. And then when I heard, I think it was like Kid Rock was out shooting his cans of Budweiser in his backyard or something. I don't know. It was so long ago. I can't remember the details, but I'm like, wait, what's happening? I didn't even know who Dylan Mulvaney was. And I will actually, like, the point of that is the more you bring attention to something, the more people are going to know about certain things. But anyway, like I'll touch on that later. So for Bud Light, their sales plummeted. Hate poured out online over a beer. Literally, a beer, people. And what did any of that change? Nothing. Because guess what? Kid Rock went back to drinking his damn Bud Light. And so have all of you other posers who thought that, you needed to cancel Bud Light because they had the nerve to put some person's face on a can or whatever the hell that stupid thing was. I just remember thinking at the time, like, this is one of the most ridiculous stances to take ever. Like, I don't know. Okay, I need to stay on focus because, like, seriously, this is a topic that I could just go off on forever. So let's move on to schools and libraries. So book bans, right? Book bans hit record highs in 2024. Over 4,000 titles challenged. Most written by women, people of color, or LGBTQ plus authors. Shocking, right? So what is that if not fear disguised as morality, right? Ooh, I'm going to read a book and it's going to make me gay. Okay. And this is where I was talking about earlier, because the funny thing is, the more you make something taboo, the more people become interested, including myself. Like I said, I never would have known who Dylan Mulvaney was if the right hadn't made such a stinking fit, such a an outrage over like this can of beer. And as far as the book bans go, I actually have a note on my to-do list to compile a list of banned books and read them. If these books had never been banned, there is a ginormous likelihood that they would never end up in my reading library. But because you made it taboo, I am going to read them. That, and I am not the only person out there like this, right? Like, okay, I have a little bit of a rebellious streak, right? If you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it. So you probably should just keep your mouth shut if you don't want me to do something. And then I don't want this to seem all slanted to the left. So I will briefly discuss or cover or mention conservative speakers on campus. I'm not going into what recently happened. I've already touched on that. I'm not going there again. So in several universities, events featuring conservative speakers like Ben Shapiro or Ann Coulter or, the recent person, again, not mentioning because I don't want algorithms to bring me hatred. These events have been protested or shut down by student groups. And while some of these protests were absolutely peaceful expressions of disagreement, which I totally agree with, others escalated to the point where the events were canceled entirely. And also, recently, there was tragedy that happened. And these incidents highlight how the left can also engage in cancel culture, sometimes silencing opposing voices instead of debating them. And again, one of the reasons why I didn't want to include the recent shooting is because that was not someone on the left silencing someone on the right. That was a totally different issue that cannot be blamed on left-right. Some people will disagree with me on that, and that's fine. We're all entitled to our opinions, but that's not where I'm going with this podcast today, with this episode. And, here's where it gets real. Cancel culture isn't just happening on the right or just happening in political realms. It's also within feminist and progressive spaces. Women calling each other out, tearing each other down, instead of calling each other in. That's the part that hurts the most. That's the part that I cannot tolerate. Women need to support and uplift one another, not tear each other down. Because that's what the patriarchy wants. Because if we're at each other's throats, we are distracted and not fighting for equality. I cannot tell you how many times I have been not left enough for the left. I'm always not right enough for the right. I'll tell you that right now. Politically, even though I consider myself to be a very moderate person because number one, I don't like labels. I, as a therapist, know that life is not black and white and we have to learn to live in the gray. And so I have very similar views politically. There are policy norms on the right that I agree with, as well as the left. But based on what I see out of the two parties, I could be described as left-leaning because of my belief that all humans were created equal, and my belief that human rights are very important. And I know that there are people on the right that believe that human rights are important. However, what I have personally experienced is that the people on the right have judgments as to what human rights actually are. And so that's where the division tends to come in for me. Because I'm not going to look at someone's lifestyle or who they love and assign a judgment to them and say, oh, but they're not equal to me because I'm straight and they're not, right? Like that's not human rights. That is freaking judgment. But anyway, see, I could totally go off on this, so I'm not going to. Let me get back to the psychology of this, the psychology of division, right? So let's talk about what's happening beneath the surface of all of the noise. So division gives the brain a sense of control. It's called in-group, out-group bias. It's that primitive part of us that says, my group equals safe, their group equals threat. Social media algorithms then amplify that bias, feeding you only what confirms your beliefs. So instead of dialogue, we get digital echo chambers. And if you are unfamiliar with the impact of algorithms, go watch The Social Dilemma. I think it's on Netflix. That is a real eye-opener to the evils of social media and internet algorithms. It illustrates how the echo chamber created by algorithms can lead to the radicalization of an individual who then commits a mass shooting. My husband and I, we watched it. I think it was back after George Floyd was murdered. We were consuming like everything we could to try and understand what was going on in the world, in addition to the experiences of Black Americans. So like we started out watching some documentaries on like John Lewis, and I think The 13th was another that we watched. And then we found The Social Dilemma. And at the time, like we didn't realize, again, this was years ago, we didn't realize just how powerful those algorithms are. And so like we watched it and we were like, oh my gosh, our parents need to watch this. They need to understand, because like my husband and I are in the Gen X generation and our parents are in the boomer and silent generations. And so those of us in Gen X have, I mean, we're probably getting a better understanding now of certain technology, but nothing like you millennials and you Gen Zers. You got this, right? Like, you understand. And so like we just wanted our family members who were stuck in their echo chamber mindset to understand that they're being fed information in a very filtered manner. So anyway, getting back to this. So here we are in our echo chambers that validate our feelings, only hearing one side of an issue, right? We're getting madder and more irate by the moment. And when we are constantly flooded with outrage, our nervous systems stay stuck in fight or flight mode. And that is not sustainable, because chronic outrage leads to burnout, hopelessness, and compassion fatigue. It's no wonder that so many people are tuning out altogether. We're tired. We have no more energy for the fight. But here's the thing. Ladies, apathy is not the answer. When women especially disconnect from the conversation, power tilts even further toward those who thrive on control, fear, and division. So, how do we bridge this chasm without sacrificing our values, without losing ourselves, without sacrificing our sanity? Well, we're going to talk about a few actionable steps, because I don't just like pointing out problems without sprinkling in some things that we can actually do about it. So, the first one, choose dialogue over dismissal. You do not have to agree with someone to understand where they are coming from. Ask questions. Listen. Model what empathy looks like in real time. when you listen to someone and you try to understand where they're coming from, yes, they could be coming from a place of racism or sexism. They could be giant piles of garbage. But you will get more understanding about it and them. That's where you will be better able to discern between, like, this person is a crap bag or this person is just not informed well. Because what I see happening is we're lumping people into the extremist categories, sometimes unfairly. Sometimes they just might be misinformed. And that is why choosing dialogue over dismissal is really important to try and understand why this is happening. Because again, these steps are aimed to help us bridge the divide, to help us understand so that we can heal and move forward. So the next step, holy crap, stop feeding the outrage machine. If I could scream this into the microphone, I would. Because let me tell you, I am so sick and tired of this nonsense. If you're doom scrolling, pause. You do not need to engage in every argument. That is what I want to highlight right now. I'm going to say it again. You do not need to engage in every argument. Protect your peace, because the algorithm feeds on your anger. Do not be a puppet to the social media algorithm. Stop arguing, because you're not going to change their minds. You're just not. And then the next step, call people in, not out. When someone messes up, offer education instead of annihilation. Accountability can exist without humiliation. Because when you come at someone from your haughty high pedestal, do you really think they're going to hear you? And I get how frustrating it is, because a lot of this nonsense that's happening today comes from a place of such freaking ignorance that I want to scream. I want to knock people's heads together. I want to tell them that they're stupid freaking idiots and maybe they should open a damn book and read up on some facts instead of a stupid freaking meme from social media. But do you think if I come at someone like that, they're going to listen to me? No. Their defenses are going to come up. They're not going to hear a single word I say because I've just been insulting and totally discredited them. So if you're thinking it in your mind, don't let it come out your mouth. Unless it's the time for that. But that's a totally different episode. We're not going to talk about that today. So again, when you are trying to get your message across, do it in a way where you will be heard, not where other people's defenses are going to come up. And then the next step, reclaim your community, because division thrives in isolation. So join groups that focus on building bridges, book clubs, advocacy circles, or even your local coffee shop's discussion night, whatever it is, because human connection is the antidote to polarization. Find your people. They will be the ones that uplift you and inspire you and keep you motivated in the right direction. And next, take breaks, but don't check out. This is one that I personally have a hard time with, so I say this with all the empathy in the world. It is okay to unplug from the noise. It is necessary to unplug from the noise, but don't disappear from the movement. Because your voice matters, especially now. And honestly, it's probably the only reason I have not stopped doing this podcast. I don't want to disappear. I want to keep being the voice in your ear that tells you you are amazing, you are strong, you are wonderful. Keep moving forward. Because you know what? I'm tired too. I want to check out. I want to disappear. But I won't let myself. because there's work to be done, and I'm going to answer the call, even if it doesn't make an impact in the way that I wish it did. I know for a fact I've made an impact on at least one person. But I know it's more because I hear your voices, because you are sending me messages. You are telling me about how this podcast has affected you. And for that, I don't do it for that, but I thank you, because that is the fuel that keeps my fire going. I love when I get those reminders that my voice matters too. All right. And finally, this last one, I'm going to have a hard time not going off on a rant, so bear with me. By the way, this episode I think is going to go a little bit long, but anyway. All right, last step, people. Diversify your news sources, please. Do not rely on just one outlet for your information. Explore a mix of reputable sources from across the political spectrum and international media. It's one of the best ways to challenge bias, to build perspective, and to stay informed without being manipulated by echo chambers. You know what? I wasn't going to go here, but here I am going here. So I recently had a conversation with a family member who had no clue that there were 2 Democratic lawmakers and their families that got murdered by MAGA extremists a few months ago. No clue. How is that even possible? Oh, wait, when you only listen to right-wing news sources, you're not going to hear about the atrocities that your party and its followers are committing. Same goes to those that only listen to news biased towards the left. This is unacceptable. Also, same family member was led to believe by right-wing sources that there is an epidemic of transgender people committing mass shootings. Wait, what? I was floored, because I was asked my opinion on whether or not I thought the hormones that they were taking were causing all of the violence. I'm telling you, the look on my face must have been priceless. I was in actual shock. I literally sat there with my mouth open for a second, unable to speak, because I'm like, wait, I don't understand. And then my fabulous husband spoke up and quickly corrected him. He had actually just read, the timing was so beautiful. He had just read the statistics on like mass shootings. I don't know if it was over the last couple of years or what it was. And he said, out of the over 4,000 mass shootings recently committed, only 4 of them were committed by transgender people. 4 out of well over 4,000. He actually had the actual number, but I can't remember it. So that's literally less than 1%. And the Republican Party is putting it out there that there's some sort of epidemic of transgender murderers out in our communities. Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm talking about, people. Get out of your damn echo chambers and figure out the facts on your own. The streets of Portland are not a war zone. Transgender people are not out there gunning people down on their lunch breaks. And for the love of God, Tylenol and early circumcision do not cause autism. All right. I'm done. Seriously, I could go off probably for about 3 hours for all of the misinformation that I have been assaulted with from people who only listen to one source. So, all right. Let's talk about hope, right? So let me just be real for a second. It is okay to feel weary. It's okay to be angry, sad, or even numb. But do not confuse exhaustion with defeat. because change happens in the small moments, in the uncomfortable conversations, the bridge building, the courage to stay compassionate in a world that rewards cruelty. Ladies, our job as women, as change makers, as truth tellers, is not to fix all of America's wounds overnight. It is simply to show up as the healing presence within them. All right, let's move to our quote of the week from Audre Lorde. You know I love her because I keep quoting her. And she says, "Without community, there is no liberation. But community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense that these differences do not exist." That quote hits especially hard right now. We can disagree. We can differ. But we still belong to the same human family. All right, my friends, thank you for sticking with me. I know I went on a little bit of a rant, but I know that there are many of you out there that can relate to just being sick and tired of living in the divided states of America. There's no need for it. We do not need to be this divided. It takes all of us. It's not up to one party or another to fix this. It is up to all of us. And I want to say I'm here for all of you. I'm sorry for those of you who are feeling exhausted and weary and wanting to just run. I get it. I'm right there with you. But that's not how change happens. So, if today's episode hit home for you, I want to challenge you to do one thing this week. Initiate one brave, compassionate conversation with someone who thinks differently from you. Not to convince them, but to connect. We need to get that human connection back. And of course, if you found value in this episode, please share it. Spread it. Let's amplify women's voices that seek to heal, not harm. And of course, join the conversation in the Hint Hive Facebook group. We are building a space where difference doesn't divide us. It strengthens us. I know for a fact that I have people on both sides of the political aisle in that group, and we have never had nastiness. We don't fight. We don't argue in that group. We are simply a bunch of women coming together to uplift one another and hopefully to have some lively discussions about episodes in there or anything that we need to talk about. It is our time, our opportunity, and our space for what we need. So please consider coming on over and hopping in on some discussions. And until next time, stay grounded, stay fierce, and never stop believing in your power to create change. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.